Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live pre-race. Big exciting show today. Got a lot to talk about. With me, Kobe Lambis from the podium finish, Joshua Burst, Matthew Bro, and Edward Hunter from Formula E Zone. I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you so much for tuning in. And a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark and Robin, and our newest member, David. You too could join the Patreon list, support and invest the Grid Network, or do a one-time contribution, as several folks have done this year. We appreciate all the bought coffees linked in the video description and encourage everyone to participate in the chat room as well. And we got to start off with Formula E. Matthew, this is the kind of race we anticipate with Formula E. Dramatic, crazy, what a race.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the inaugural race at the Cape Town E-Prix, and it had a great crowd attending the race and beautiful weather. That's all you can ask for at the end of the day. But a horrible day for the points leader, Pascal Wehrlein, who collided with Sebastian Buemi at the end of lap 1 and was out of the race after starting 6th on the grid. Jake Dennis was in 12th place and out of the points when the crash occurred, but then he later got a penalty for not respecting the minimum tire pressure rule. Jake Dennis finished 13th and out of the points. I'm going to start with you, Ed. How big of a break was this for Wehrlein, and how much of a missed opportunity was it for Dennis?
Well, it would have been a much... the only thing that Wehrlein really broke was the front of his car. It seems his championship lead is intact, thankfully for him. And it would have been a lot worse, I think, for Wehrlein had Dennis been able not gotten that penalty, which was for the minimum tire pressure. So before every session, the cars are required to have a minimum tire pressure, effectively, a certain PSI. I forget exactly what number it is. Josh will probably know off the top of his head. But
I'm on it.
Okay, he's just getting the rule book out. Essentially what happened was that either the pressure dropped, I think, just before the start or during the opening couple of laps of the race. And this was detected through the telemetry and effectively resulted in getting a penalty. So it's effectively Andretti not putting enough pressure in the tyres for whatever reason, or potentially them just getting really, really unlucky. I remember several seasons ago, Team Aguri lost the pole position for Da Costa for the same reason in Long Beach. I think in season 2, they got pole position. And it was only discovered afterwards that the tire pressure was too low, and so they ended up being disqualified. It's happened to a couple of other teams over the years, but it's a little bit less common these days. So I guess with these new Hankook tires, not everyone's gotten on top of them. But it was a shame. I thought Dennis was having a good race up to that point, but yeah, I guess the big story is Wehrlein crashing out. And yeah, he's still, because of those issues for Dennis, still got a 16-point or 14-point lead. I think whatever it is, 80 points to I think 64 for Dennis, if I remember correctly. But I definitely don't think Wehrlein covered himself in glory today. And Buemi actually did very, very well to recover up through the field to, I think, top 5 in the end. So, in fact, there's the point standings there. It was 62 points for Dennis, so he's actually doing slightly worse than I remembered. But there we go. And the big story, I think, is others behind have capitalized and closed in, as I'm sure Josh will agree.
Indeed, they have. And the tire pressure for minimum tire pressure was 1.2 bar. So 1.20 bar.
I was thinking PSI. That's why I couldn't remember.
Yeah. The tire camber on the front and rear axle is -4, and that's the maximum. The minimum is 0. And the width as well, the front axle is 10 and at the back it's 12. So that's the information I've just got up from the tire spec there as well. And looking at the minimum tire pressure is measured from the beginning of the session when the wheels are fitted as well to the vehicle until the end of the session, and within the first 30 minutes of park firm on the weekend. So he was below. Apologies, I need to cope after all day. I will be brief with my answer. Yeah, Wehrlein having an accident was pretty much a surprise to me and Ed in the commentary box. We both thought, oh, hang on a minute, is that actually Wehrlein straight ahead at turn 1? Because the liveries are so similar. But over the back of Buemi, who nearly himself, he was moving out to avoid from Vern. And in doing so, caught Wehrlein off guard, and Wehrlein went bang into the back of him because he locked the front tyres up. So it was unfortunate for him to have that. And then Dennis having the penalty for being under the minimum tyre was sort of expected. as soon as we saw it flash up on the timing monitor, it was going to happen. But I know that's 2 bad races in a row for Dennis, and arguably 2 bad races in a row for Verline as well. So they've got to start closing in. But this is brilliant for Vern. As you say, he now moves up to 50 points going into the month break. So 30 points back from Verline isn't really anything in Formula E. And watch out for DaCosta, as Ed mentioned on the stream. He's closing with 2 great races in a row as well. And I've got to say, it was a bit up and down day for Chaz as well. It's a good start to Formula E.
Definitely. It seems like a good start. Also, a little bit of drama that in this race. I just want to point out my pick a winner. I picked Verline, so clearly I am a pick a DNF when it comes to Formula E this season. I am not doing too hot on that stretch, but none of us did either. But to get into what we're actually talking about, the race had a lot of drama, including Antonio Felix da Costa taking the lead with 5 laps to go. But he missed the attack mode on lap 26, allowing Vern to close in right behind. And then on lap 28, he took attack mode, got it, but fell to second place behind Vern. Then again, 2 laps were added to the race, making it 32 laps instead of 30. And then again, another daring move, even making contact with Vern to retake the lead. Da Costa takes a dramatic win in the inaugural Grand E-Prix there. And then Porsche became the first team this season to have both drivers win a race. So I'm starting with you for this one, Josh. How big of a statement is it for Da Costa to take the win and prevent another driver from earning 25 points on his crashed teammate, which was Verline?
Absolutely massive. I mean, I've been very critical of Da Costa on the Grid Network shows and on the watch-alongs as well throughout this season because he was having such a terrible start as well. And Diria was a real low point. And I feel like I said at the time, they need to. There's a moth annoying me. They need to start performing, and the teammates as well. We've got Lotterer isn't really doing much at the moment. He's still struggling out there, but Da Costa really needs to perform in that Porsche, and he's done it here today with what I think is one of the best moves of all time. At a turn 9 on the inside, as you said, Matthew, on Vern, it was a very tricky move, and we've seen 3 big accidents at turn 9 this weekend. It's only a 2-day event, remember. We saw Boy hit the wall, and Mortara hit the wall, then Bird hit Mortara after hitting the wall as well. So to go literally down the inside and almost hit the wall himself. Commitment like you wouldn't believe. Absolutely brilliant. And it's one of my favourite moves. That goes up the hill in Monaco as well, and a couple of others in Formula 1. That was honestly one of the best moves I've ever seen. So massive for him. And as well, your question was about how big was this for your question was Da Costa as well with a statement. Yeah, big statement. I think now Da Costa and Verline are going to go equal with each other in the team to go up for the championship. I think Dennis and Lotterer, who are 2 teammates, that's pretty much now certain that Dennis is the number 1, Lotterer is the number 2. But we've got a month off now to reflect whether anything changes going to Sao Paulo. I don't know, but I think we're pretty much set in for exactly who we now know is hot and who's not. And it's going to be Verline, Da Costa, Vern, and Dennis for me.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Josh that Da Costa made a really, really good move, not once, but twice. And he sort of made it difficult for himself. I remember saying during the stream with Josh when we were watching the race was that basically because Da Costa missed that attack mode, that dropped him behind Vern and basically forced him to do that move twice when really he really only should have had to do it once if he had done it, got into attack mode at the first attempt. But it was certainly, he's been, obviously had a bit of a quiet start to the season, just quietly scoring a few points in Mexico, struggling in Saudi Arabia, got that podium in Hyderabad where basically him and Verline were able to walk through the field effectively, and Da Costa got shuffled back a few times, but was able to fight back in that race in India. And here we saw him climb from 11th place. Sort of, we didn't really notice it all that much at first, but he just kept picking cars off one by one. And in the end, nobody could really hold a candle to him. The Porsche's energy efficiency, it's still the best car out there, in my opinion. And I think it really makes Verline's mistake even bigger because I think Verline could very easily have been on the podium as well if he had not clumsily locked up and hit the back of Bohemia. And I think people were saying, I was listening to the driver's room afterwards, and they were saying things like, oh, once you lock up, there's like no chance of stopping it in these cars. In fact, one driver said something like, actually, I think you go faster when you lock up than when you're pressing on the accelerator, which is kind of a funny comment.
It's Formula E drift.
A little bit, yeah. It felt like that at times, especially on the dirty parts of the track, and through turn 9 as well, which was certainly a big talking point in this race. And of course, that moment early on where the full course yellow was pulled out for the Verline-Buemi crash, and basically Fenestraz, who was on pole, found Gunther going past him, and Gunther later crashed out because he got the loose rear at turn 1 and hit the wall, and basically the car was too damaged to continue, and then he got instantly investigated for overtaking under full course yellow, and he's like, well, he's already out of the race, so it's kind of an irrelevant point now. But anyway, that's all a bit. Sorry, Josh, go on.
Yeah, Pascal Wehrlein it's literally just come through, actually. Pascal Wehrlein has been awarded a 3-place grid penalty for the drop of the next race and 1 penalty point awarded. That's for the contact with Buemi. I'm just having a look because the steward's decisions have become available to us. Maximilian overtaking under full course yellow, breach of Article 39.1, drive-through penalty converted into a drop of 3 grid positions in the next race, and 2 penalty points awarded because he overtook Fenestraz at T9. So there's your response to that question.
Yeah, I was also wondering if Sam Bird had served his penalty, because unfortunately he crashed in qualifying. So he had a penalty from Hyderabad that he couldn't serve because he wasn't in the race. So I'm not sure if him missing the race is like, well, we'll just forget about the penalty because the race is done and you didn't get to take part, or will they say, oh, he has to serve it in Sao Paulo instead? I don't know. But I assume, because there was nothing in the rules that I read about it, that penalty is basically forgotten about, that Sam's kind of missing the race through his own crash, essentially, even though maybe we can talk a bit about the circumstances of that, has sort of been penalty enough. But anyway, the original question that Matthew asked me, how big of a statement is this? I guess he asked you, and then I had to answer as well. I feel, like I said, I feel Da Costa, he had a bit of a slow start to the season, but I feel like he's really come back into his own. We know he's such a charismatic driver. He's very popular, pretty much up and down the paddock, no matter where he goes. Everyone seems to love Antonio. Everyone at Techeetah said the same things about him. And even though everyone was coming up to hug him after he won at the Porsche team, which is quite funny as well. And I feel like it's interesting now because we've got Pascal Wehrlein, who's been there a long time, who's had a great start to the season, is now starting to make a couple of errors and doesn't seem quite as on top of things. I think ever since it was FP1 in Hyderabad where the throttle got stuck open, he had that big crash. He had to get checked out in the hospital for that. It was a big impact, and he was finally raced to 4th place in that race. But it definitely feels like he's not been on the back foot since then, and not quite had the rub of the green that Da Costa has had. Admittedly, Da Costa also put in a great performance as well. And in terms of protecting Wehrlein's championship, I think he's more thinking about his own chances. It's so early in the season with quite a big chunk of it left to go. I really think Da Costa fancies not only just helping Wehrlein to seal the team's championship for Porsche, which they look like they're in a much better position to do now, but also his own chances in the drivers. I think Da Costa and Verne have become kind of the dark horses, whereas we thought Dennis and Wehrlein were the main favourites. And there might be one or two others that maybe get their season back together in the later stages. Go on, Josh.
Someone has just walked into the side of the commentary box.
Sounded like a cat.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, my
That's
cat.
not a cat. That's not me. That's
Matthew's cat.
My cat came to join the Formula E.
Yes.
It's all getting chaotic.
It's trek across the Atlantic. Now, what I've just been told is somebody's just texted me saying, watched your Formula E race today. Do you have a different shirt? And then I realized I wore this in Hyderabad. So I've done double shirts back to back. I try and avoid that. I have 36 different shirts and I've worn the same back to back in Formula E. I do try my best to rotate the wardrobe as much as I can. So
just say it's
I
the
look
lighting
different.
that makes it. The lighting makes it look like the same color.
It's actually blue. It's blue. It's just that Tom's stream was made it look green. That's all. Yeah, that's a bit of a. That was just a funny I thought I'd share because I don't usually make those mistakes, and I'll get my flowery shirts out for next weekend, I think.
Definitely. And then after hearing like all this stuff, I believe Wehrlein, that's got to be probably the longest anticipated penalties, grid drop penalties, because it's be in about a month. And then that just caps off what an unusual race this started out to be, with Mahindra and Abt unable to participate for safety reasons due to a flexing rear suspension. Then Sam Bird was out of the race after his qualifying crash and just didn't start. Both Maseratis were out of the race, including Max Gunther, who led after the first safety car. And then on the last lap, the pole sitter, Sasha Fenestras, hit the wall and fell from 3rd to 14th, as only 14 cars finished this race. And then starting with you, did this give you the vibe of a typical Formula E race, with the close, hard racing and drivers making mistakes and then eventually retiring?
I don't know. I think that sounds like a generic motor race from what you've said there. But for me, but certainly, I think it was action-packed, certainly, Formula E race on a very unique Formula E track, because it was so high speed. There was really one chicane on the circuit, and it was that turn 9-10 sort of section where we saw pretty much all of the incidents, especially in qualifying, and a little bit to an extent in the race. There are a couple of moments there as well. As you say, the incident with I think originally turn 9 and 10 was supposed to have an extra chicane added into it to sort of slow it down, and also to give cars an extra chance to sort of regen energy. And in fact, because they got rid of that chicane, it sort of shortened the lap so much to the extent that the drivers are saying maybe we should get a few extra laps in there into the distance of the race, so that there's energy management becomes more of a factor near the end, because they're worried that they have way too much power at the end. And as it happened, we got the safety car interruption. We got a few more laps anyway, or at least 2, I think. And it did end up being very close and dramatic, because they ended up just using more energy anyway. But for Mahindra and Abt, it definitely seemed the rear suspension was flexing. And so this was discovered on the day of the race, so free practice 2. They discovered it on Nico Muller's car, that the rear suspension was sort of buckling, and it sort of was fatiguing under a lot of pressure at that specific corner, I think, under the high speed, and especially over the bump. And so Frederick Bertrand, who's the Mahindra team principal, was saying basically we had to withdraw because it looked okay. We thought maybe nothing would happen, but there's a risk that something could happen, and we can't really take that chance. So we've taken the precaution of withdrawing all 4 cars, because Abt, the customer team of Mahindra, has sort of got no choice, because it's not like they can ditch Mahindra and put different powertrain in the back of the car, because it's all very complicated and you can't really just install a new powertrain at the last minute. It's not like you've got any spare powertrains lying around. And of course, the rear suspension is part of the thing that the teams are allowed to design this season, and Mahindra have designed their own custom one. So it is unfortunate. They will fix it for Sao Paulo. And it just seems like it was a consequence of this track being very, very extreme in both in its speed and also in terms of the bumps and sort of the narrow margin for error as well at that corner, where we got this wall sort of sticking out from the inside, which we saw De Costas very skillfully navigate when he made an overtake on Verne twice, as we said. And also I think he did the same move on Cassidy, didn't he, a few laps before, which I also thought was a very good move. And we can talk a little bit about Nick Cassidy later, I guess. But I so Sam Bird, as I'm sure Josh will talk about in just a second when I hand over to him. Sam Bird and Mortara had their own crashes in qualifying at that corner, and I think I'm not sure what you feel about this, Josh. Do you feel like the safety in Formula E is really sort of up to scratch, or do you think there's room for improvement?
I see what you did there. You reversed the question I asked you in the watching.
I know, right? I wonder where I got that one from.
I purposely asked you that so that I'd actually be put on the spot with it. To be honest with you, I'm thinking after the race as well, because we had the virtual safety car and almost a massive pile-up twice. It nearly happened. To be honest with you, I think I would say yes, the safety standards need to be improved. We saw, as you said yourself, we saw back in Hyderabad, the wing was just left on the middle of the road, ironically enough with an FIA logo pretty much sat on top of it. There was debris everywhere. There was cars stranded around the circuit. There was no yellows, only a slippery surface flag out. We saw that again today, didn't we? Slippery surface flags out when it should have been in yellow, cars off the track and taking an age to make the decisions. I mean, as you were saying, Sam Bird's accident was caused because the red flag and the yellow flag came out too late as well, because Mortara on the dust, hit the wall at turn 9 after making an overcorrection. It just too much, hit the wall, same as Buemi in practice 1 at the same part of the track. And then he was almost collected by his team. And then Sam Bird, the red flag got called just as Sam Bird was coming around the corner. So it's a flat out kink at 9. So Sam lifted, and when he lifted, because of the regen power, it activated and it just went round like one of those bottle tops you see, hit the wall hard backwards, and because Mortara was right at the exit, he whacked into the side of Mortara. So Bird had 3 distinct hits, and that's why he didn't start the race. Mortara luckily did, but then it conked out and caused the virtual safety car that almost took out the entire front 5 of the field. So I think the safety standards need to improve. The calling of these things need to be made immediately, because they took an age in Hyderabad and they were too quick today, and yet they still made the errors. They can't do right from wrong, but I think there's a lot of panic in race control, and it shouldn't be there. And I was really, really disappointed to see that we only had 17 cars start the race. I was really disappointed that we only had, 13 finish, which is insane. But it was a great race, and I think it would have been better if we had everybody else, because it was a pack race. Everyone was running together. One mistake and you were falling back through the field. And then another thing as well that we saw on the well, actually, I don't know if you even saw it, Ed. You might have gone back and seen it, but I noticed on the last lap when Da Costa was battling Stras, out of turn 10, lost it and hit the wall and took off the front suspension. We never saw a replay of that, and it never got mentioned on the Channel 4.
I think it did. They did a very, very brief replay, but the vision mixer was messing up of what happened between Fenestraz and Cassidy. So basically, Cassidy sort of made a move. There was a little bit sort of 50-50, and Fenestraz sort of went wide and made a mistake as a result, and went off into the wall and fell down. And I think did finish the race, but was nearly like 30 seconds down everyone else. So it was a big shame, because Fenestraz, we didn't really mention him. I wanted to bring up that a brilliant qualifying lap, beat Maximilian Günther to pole position. Then sort of his race started going wrong when Günther kind of decided to not obey the full course yellow in time and jump. And take
he
the
got
lead
caught
from
out
him.
The second one, didn't he? Because he went for attack mode when the second.
Him and Cassidy really suffered from that as well, because Cassidy did the same thing. But the problem was Fenestraz also lost track position as well as wasting effectively most of his attack mode. And then he did get back ahead of Cassidy, and then had that incident happen at the end. So really, Sasha Fenestraz, who's shown great form this season, great pace in the Nissan, has really not had the best of luck, and has only sort of scraped a few points finishes when there was easily here and in Hyderabad, it must be said, the podium was possible, and he basically got in Hyderabad definitely taken out. Here it was a little bit sort of 50-50, so I'm not sure which way I'd call it. I feel like Fenestraz maybe used a little bit too much energy passing Cassidy early, and Cassidy was saving a little bit more for the end, is my opinion.
I'll go a step further, guys. I think we lost a chance to have Fenestraz win the race today, for sure. Fast in practice 1, fast in FP2, quickest of all in qualifying Group A, top pole position as well, and was looking strong after the start, and then it all went away. So I think
I couldn't quite see Fenestraz beating Da Costa today, Josh, if I'm being honest. I think he might have been able to. Position. Well, yeah, I mean, because it's a sort of. The problem is there's a sort of butterfly effect where if one thing happens different, then a load of other things happen different. There's it sort of cascades after that. But yeah, I certainly feel he was definitely robbed of a podium today. And I think Fenestraz's chance will come surely later in the season. If he keeps putting in these sorts of performances, you got to think so.
Indonesia, that's his type of
track.
The
problem is you sort of predict someone's going to do well at this point, and then the exact opposite thing to what you say happens. So I'm not going to put too much. I'm the predicting man. Works, isn't it? I'm the predicting man. Look at the pick a winner. Except I got it wrong today. Yeah, right. But there's still NASCAR to come. Maybe the lucky dip will pay out. Here we go. Right. Okay.
Where is it? I've got it.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention Fenestraz. We did sort of talk a little bit about Günther earlier. I think Günther sort of he also blew a chance of a podium today.
I've got a microphone.
Not the best decision, but certainly the 1 lap pace of that Maserati looks a lot stronger than it did at the start of the season. So I think DS have certainly come on leaps and bounds since Mexico.
Matthew, you take it. I'm just going to show Ed the microphone.
Definitely. I mean, we just had so much excitement happen in the first 5 races. Now we have a month-long break before the next race, which will be in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This allows the teams and drivers to reevaluate their programs, Porsche has 3 wins out of the first 5 races this season, and then Andretti Avalanche, Dennis, hasn't scored points in 2 races. And DS Penske got both drivers in the points today. No Jaguar driver scored points. And then Nick Cassidy took another podium and even led during the race. So starting with you, Joshua, which teams enter the break looking good, and which teams need to step it up when we return back to racing in a month's time?
Maserati need to step it up. They need to get more consistent as well. They keep getting into the duels, but then having really poor races, so they need to improve a lot. I think Apt need to get their act together, ironically enough, because they've been up and down all season. We knew this was going to be a struggle for them this year, but it shouldn't be this big of a struggle. I know we've got Freins out, but we've got 2 drivers, and neither of them performing really well. I think Porsche look really strong. They've got a great lineup there. I actually think Jaguar look pretty good as well, but they're on sort of they look good, they need to improve. They're sort of right in the middle, because one weekend Sam Bird has a great race, and then the next weekend he doesn't. So far, bad weekend in Mexico, great weekend in Diriyah, bad weekend in Hyderabad, even worse weekend here in Cape Town. I keep doing it, don't I? So I'm hoping Sao Paulo has a really great race, and then it goes up and up again when we get to Berlin, a track he's won at. So fingers crossed Sam Bird gets it together. But Mitch Evans has been, I think, a star in the opening 5 races in the first month of racing. He's been really on it, and 5 races completed in the side a month is really impressive. So really good stuff. Let's have a break. Let's get everything else running with F1, everything like that. Actually, when the next one's on, it's when we kickstart MotoGP as well. So let's get everything up and running, and then we'll all run away with the grid shows and just carry on enjoying the sport. Because right now, I think we're in a really good, safe space with Formula E. Cars are dramatic, stewarding's wrong, but boy, is it fun to watch.
That's the first time I've heard you use the word safe space to describe Formula E this season. Because of all the accidents, safety's not been the watchword. But anyway, I better answer the question now. So Porsche, unquestionably, definitely the package to beat. And I think the factory team has certainly got on top of things now. And I think Andretti have struggled. Lotter especially has struggled. I think Lotter has looked especially I don't want to say weak, but he's certainly struggled in a lot of the races compared to Dennis. I think Dennis has had much better pace. And the last 2 races in Hyderabad, Dennis got taken out by Rene Rast while looking good for a podium. And then here he had the tire pressure issue, which again was sort of the team not setting it up correctly. So, I mean, not really much that Jake Dennis could really have done at that point. And by the time he'd gone through the pit lane, because it has a hairpin in the middle of it, so it takes quite a while to navigate through the pit lane to serve that drive through. By the time he came out, he was miles behind and had basically no chance of getting into the points unless 50 cars ahead of him fell out of the race. And there weren't 50 at the start of the race, so that's a silly statement to make. But anyway, I think I agree with what Josh said. I think Evans has put in some very good drives this season, and sort of we saw it in Diriyah and also in Hyderabad, where, to an extent before Sam Bird crashed into him, that Jaguar didn't quite have the strategy right. And here they had a drive-through for the power overuse, essentially. So there was a spike in the data and the telemetry, which again was sort of from going over a curb or something or other that Evans couldn't really have done anything about, or perhaps it might have even been a coding error. We don't really know. But that was really unfortunate for Mitch Evans, because he was challenging Nick Cassidy, who ended up having a good race, getting another podium today. I think Cassidy is certainly another driver who's really staking his claim and doing extremely well for Envision. And I think Cassidy's going to be fighting for and taking more wins as this season goes on, because the Jaguar package is probably 2nd or 3rd quickest. Maybe sort of it depends, because DS have improved quite a lot. DS Penske, especially with Verne, I would say maybe they are the 4th or 3rd quickest car behind Porsche and Jaguar. Another team that's impressed me, we haven't talked about it much, but Neo 333, Dan Ticktum finishing in the top 6 today. It did just get beaten by Buemi on his recovery drive from the very back of the field. So another decent drive by Buemi today. But Ticktum getting his best finish of his Formula E career in the top 6. A very tidy, clean race. No dramas this time for him. So I think he'll be happy with that, especially after Sede Kamara got a top 5 last time out. It certainly seems that Neo 333, they can keep getting these top 6 finishes, then the likes of Mahindra, Nissan, all those other teams they're fighting with, they might start to worry about, through. So I certainly think good stories up and down the field. McLaren, Rene Rast were fourth today. I think McLaren continue to sort of outscore the factory Nissan team. Of course, it makes sense because they're the former Mercedes squad. I expect a little bit more from Jake Hughes. I thought he was a little bit anonymous, run down to 10th, I think, just behind Lotterer. But Rast certainly delivered today. So I feel they're getting about the most out of their package, all things considered, in a crazy race. So I think that's generally my thoughts, unless I missed something. Obviously, hard to say about Mahindra because they didn't participate in the race. It's hard to say where they are in the order, but I certainly think they'll be back to form when we get to Sao Paulo with that new rear suspension added in, hopefully beefed up. Although there is a thing in the rules where I'm not sure if you're allowed to change your suspension all that much, because the FIA gives a sort of big penalty if you did change your suspension mid-season, because there's a homologation for all the packages from the very beginning of the year. There's only like software and a couple of maybe there might be a force majeure thing where they have to do it just to prevent any kind of suspension collapse in the future. But we'll have to see how the FIA handles it, because if they put in a rear suspension, it makes them like 3 or 4 temps faster, then people will be asking questions.
Definitely. And 5 races out of the 16 are completed now in Formula One. Just under a third, I bet.
Formula 30. E, Matthew.
Formula E, I'm sorry. Where is it? Formula, yeah, so about 30.
That's for what we're getting on to, don't worry.
Yes, so be sure to make sure you follow Formula E Zone. Link will be in our video description, and subscribe to Grid Network, as we plan to be at the Portland E-Prix later this season. And before we get into NASCAR, I foreshadowed a little bit. I'm going to throw it over to Joshua so we can talk about a little bit of F1 testing that has been going on the past 3 days.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Yeah, that's kind of what we were going to talk about. Yeah, the F1 testing's been on as well. So we've had around about 26 and a half hours completed over the last 3 days. And it's all been very, very interesting, because what it shows is that everyone has seen you've copied the Ferrari side pod design from last year. Even Red Bull, to an extent, has taken that effect. So we've got kind of a strange hibernation of Red Bull sort of strategy of the car from the front suspension, the rear suspension, a Ferrari side pod. And then strangely on top as well, they've all gone for the Mercedes triple effect on the aero box as well. So the cars are jumbled up. It's an evolution, not a revolution for this year as well, as teams improve. Reliability's been really strong. Only 4 red flags as well. One caused by a sensor falling off of Perez's car. But then there were the bigger ones, because we had Valtteri Bottas coming to a stop in the Alfa Romeo with a technical fault. Hydraulic failure on George Russell yesterday kept him out of some glory runs as well. That's a big worry for Mercedes. And Felipe Drugovich in the first 7 minutes of the test in Thursday stopped out on the track as well. But here's what I think is the strong orders. Now, in the game, we've all sort of played the game of trying to predict which teams are which and where in the standings. I've gone for this. So I think Red Bull is still the fastest team in Formula One. They look really strong, really competitive across testing. There's a few issues that have cropped up they can easily iron out, like the ride height being raised as well has affected them a little bit. There's cars a little bit drifty, but they look strong. Mercedes, massive improvements in this test as well. Despite hydraulic failure, Hamilton and Russell able to pump in the tires, really strong looking there. Ferrari, I think they're sandbagging slightly. The biggest surprise though for the midfield, Aston Martin, right up there as well. Really strong times for Fernando Alonso as well. He was second fastest on day 1, third fastest on day 2. Day 3, he ended the session and but didn't get us to a proper glory run as well. And then going down, I've put Alfa Romeo as the 5th team, joint with Haas. They've been really good. Williams has surprised me. A lot of long runs as well. And understanding the new aerodynamic floor they've got on, that looks great. McLaren, they've had a worse test than most. Least laps completed about any other team. They've got pace, but the car's unreliable. A lot of failures again. And again, it looks like brakes. Remember that? We had that at the start last year. AlphaTauri, they also have been having issues as well. Kept the car out. But the worst team, we've barely seen them. Even though they have completed the laps, but it's very, very slow. I've put Alpine at the bottom, mainly because of reliability, and they keep struggling. They're not getting to grips. The car looks very unstable as well, coming through the corners. So I think that's how it looks. In terms of the overall testing times, the last hour of day 3 is really where we saw the glory runs, which is everybody going on the fastest tire, the C5, and going flat out in the coolest of the track conditions. Perez topped that on a 1:33.05. The reason I'm bringing that up is because it is 3/10 faster than the pole time last year. So fantastic that in testing alone, we're quicker than the pole time last year. Hamilton was second, proving the point that they seem to be back, separated by 3.5 tenths. Then it was Bottas, so Alfa Romeo again with pace. Ferrari were 4th and 5th, Leclerc ahead of Sainz. And then it was Tsunoda, Magnussen, Russell Alonso, and Drugovich rounding out the top 10. My sources tell me that Drugovich will be in the car for the first 2 races as well, replacing Lance Stroll, who's broken both his wrists. There is a rumor going on that Sebastian Vettel might come back. I don't think it'll be Bahrain. If it is, it could be for Saudi Arabia or Australia if Stroll still isn't fit enough, because if it's a double wrist break, it could take 6 to 12 weeks to heal. After that, Lando Norris 11th. He was kept in the garage most of the last day as well. Problems with the brakes, as I said earlier. Gasly 12th for Alpine, struggling. Alexander Albon up there in the Williams in 13th. Ocon, Hulkenberg, Piastri, and De Vries as well. The least data on the cars is the McLaren, the most team as well. Well, that goes to Red Bulls. There's a quick testing wrap-up. Absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic stuff to see F1 back on the track. And of course, last week, NASCAR returned back on the track. We're bringing Kobe in and Matthew for NASCAR. They're starting out the West Coast swing again over at Auto Club Speedway. But this time, it's the last time we're coming to Auto Club Speedway with this current configuration. Next time, it will be a short track, one of the worst kept secrets in the rumor mill in NASCAR. All the advertisements are saying this is the last race on this configuration of the track, and it's the latest chapter of tracks in Southern California that NASCAR has visited. Riverside from 1958 to 1988 was a road course that got removed for development of neighborhood stores. 1971 to 1980, Ontario was a 2.5-mile oval, very similar to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that went away for development as well. Then we have Auto Club Speedway. It started out as California Speedway, opened in 1997. Jeff Gordon won the first race there, and the racetrack was originally owned by Penske. Not a lot of folks remember, Penske at the time owned Auto Club, Michigan, Nazareth, and Rockingham in North Carolina. But 2023 will be the last time we'll see the current 2-mile oval before being replaced. Kobe, starting with you. Thoughts on this chapter of NASCAR in Southern California coming to an end?
To be honest, Joe, I'm really sad that the big oval at Auto Club Speedway is going to be going away in favor of a short track, and they still have a lot to figure out with the short track. You know, there's not going to be a race next season here because they have to tear down the current track and get all that clear. That's going to take a while, and then rebuilding the new short track, which the early renderings that it's going to have it's going to be like a hybrid of Martinsville and Bristol, to have the straights of Martinsville combined with the banking of Bristol. So it's going to be interesting to see how this short track turns out. But Auto Club Speedway, oh man, last year put on such a good race. A lot of people were hoping, since it put on such a great race, that maybe NASCAR would reconsider the short track, because Fontana is quite a unique track. It's a really big track with multiple grooves all around, and then the bumps on the backstretch. Drivers are hopping up and down in the seat. Figuratively there, but overall, Fontana, this track, although as you mentioned, Joe, opened in 1997, during its short history, we've seen some really truly incredible races during that time. My favorite race personally was the 2013 Auto Club 4. That year was the final lap. Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin were battling really hard, going for the win. Kyle Busch was ripping the fence, slipped around on the outside. Logano and Hamlin made contact. Unfortunately, Hamlin ended up suffering a serious injury that day. And yeah, that was just quite a dramatic finish there. The two drivers you think going to be in the contention for the win ended up both losing, and then the guy who was running third ended up winning the race. And then Tony Stewart was really mad at Joey Logano on pit road that day, and we remember Tony's infamous interview where he said he was going to bust Joey Logano's you know what for throwing a bad block on him that day. So Auto Club, then there's a lot of great memories as well. The NTT IndyCar Series sure remember the Mav TV 500 race we had. That was one of the craziest IndyCar races I've ever seen, and it's such a shame we never got another IndyCar race at Auto Club Speedway after that day. So overall, really gonna miss the track in its current form.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that. Also, like, you cannot find, it seems like when we talk about Auto Club Speedway, 2013, the 10-year anniversary, seems that one video of Logano and Hamlin getting into each other and then Kyle Busch sneaking around on the outside. I feel like that's just the pinnacle for the highlight reel, is you have to show that specific clip every single time we come to this track. But unfortunately, it'll be no more after this race coming up tomorrow. And then again with the Logano and Stewart interview, just crazy to think how long ago that was. That was 10 years ago. Absolutely incredible. Also, I want to point out, this is definitely upsetting to see this chapter close, and looking at what Joe previously mentioned with the tracks owned by Penske, with Auto Club, Michigan, Nazareth no longer in use, Rockingham maybe being rebuilt. Now that Auto Club's gone, I just want to tell NASCAR to please, with these like 2-mile tracks and 1.5 up, please don't touch Michigan. Please, like, leave it. It's good. We love Michigan. Please don't touch Michigan as well. Seems like the whole maybe we're developing a Penske curse in terms of ownership with these tracks that they used to have, obviously, now that NASCAR owns all of them. But it's a very sad thing. Not many California drivers come out to in Southern California, but then you see guys like Kyle Larson from Elk Grove completely dominate on this track. He's won here twice in a span of, I believe, 5 or 6 years. He does very well. He did throw a terrible block on his teammate last year that helped him, I feel, seal the win at the end of the day, because Chase Elliott had a strong car. But it's very unfortunate seeing this track close. It was always one of my favorites to watch. I like to see where there's not really much pack racing, but at the same time, drivers can full throttle it, and that's something I think the fans love to see as well. So unfortunately, we won't be having this conversation again for a couple more years unless the short track is built by 2025 season. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, definitely unfortunate ending to what I thought was a great track.
I think you're muted, Joe.
Like I was going to say, I think it's a great track. It's unfortunate that we're going to see it go and just be the latest chapter in tracks in California, as Adam here also mentions too. Riverside International, just barely young enough to remember that last race over there. And then, of course, IndyCar and NASCAR at Auto Club Speedway. I mean, Auto Club Speedway, when it was brand new, had some of the largest events for the state of California, with a sold-out crowd for the PPG IndyCar World Championship, kart, and then, of course, the Cup Series when they came out for their 500-mile race. Seems like it sort of, that big excitement went away a little bit. But 2011, that was when we saw Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson battle for the lead. Kevin Harvick pushing Jimmy Johnson out of the way to grab the lead. That's one of my favorite memories. And while it is sad to see this track go, just seeing that pattern of tracks coming and going in Southern California and knowing how that region has really grown. I know a lot of folks say we want a short track. NASCAR saying, okay, we'll redevelop Auto Club. All of us saying, no, don't do that one. Well, then the question will be, which track? Do we see a brand new short track get built somewhere? And I think that's going to get really harder because, as you said, Michigan's another popular one. How would fans react if, let's make Michigan a short track instead of Auto Club? I think it'll just be endless debate, but definitely something where it'll be really exciting to see what's going to happen with Auto Club going into the future. And of course, this race, I think it's going to be very exciting because what we had, supposedly, qualifying practice today, washed out. Rain and even snow up in the mountains nearby in Southern California. So according to NASCAR.com, we have Christopher Bell. He is going to be on the pole for the race. Then we got Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Joey Logano. Some notable names are not in the top 20. They are further back. You're going to have Eric Jones, who had a strong run here last year, 34th. Chase Elliott, 33rd. William Byron, 32nd. And the rookie Ty Gibbs, 23rd. And last year's pole sitter, Austin Cindric, 19th. Matthew, I got to say, do you see this race being with the worn-out surface, the big names in the back, a race very similar to last year where we saw an exciting, action-packed race?
I think most definitely it's going to be action packed, especially considering the lineup was drawn by metric. I mean, you have guys like, no offense to like Cody Ware, Corey LaJoy, but you have these guys starting up in 11th and 12th, and it's just guys who haven't run up front that much at these tracks. We're still very talented racers, so it's going to mix the field. Like I liked when the Pocono doubleheader when they used to invert the field in like 2020. It was very cool to see like that start of the race where it's like these drivers who might not have the fastest car can still hold their own, and I think Auto Club is notorious for that. It's I think it's going to be very similar. I wouldn't doubt a Chevrolet dominant race yet again. I mean, if you look at last year's results, it was just all Larson, Dillon, Jones, Suarez was your top four, all Chevrolets, and I think this was a great race to show that what Daniel Suarez and what Eric Jones had in their cars before they eventually did get that win in their equipment. So I think this is going to be a great show. I think you expect to see guys like Chase Elliott as well up there. This is another race like last season where Tyler Reddick pretty much dominated the start of it, and then something went wrong for him. I would expect him to come from around 35th, 36th on the grid to be up there by the time end of stage one, stage two, maybe. But I think it's going to be competitive. I mean, you have all these great drivers at this track who are known for doing well, starting in the back, and specifically the Chevrolets as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be a very, very tight race. As long as we don't have any incidents, I really think it's going to be great. And I hope that they send Auto Club out with a bang. I mean, last season was a great race too. We were hoping it did enough, but unfortunately it didn't. So hopefully they can just, like I said, go out with a bang and have a great race here. But I expect it to be Chevrolet dominance, but also expect me to be on NASCAR cold takes when that's completely wrong as well. But we'll see what happens here tomorrow.
Yeah, Matthew, we definitely want the final race on the 2 mile Auto Club Speedway to go out with a bang and another race with great memories before we was shifting to the new era. And looking at last year's race, I thought the race was really incredible. It was actually the podium finish. We did like top 5 best races, and it was actually in my top 5 of best races in 2022. So I'm really expecting this another competitive race on this worn out surface, the bumps down the backstretch, and hopefully Fontana will give us one last act where we can see a really incredible race with the drivers utilizing those multiple grooves all the way from the bottom to the very top of the track. And we'll see who'll be able to get a win on board and try to secure their spot in the playoffs, joining the Daytona 500.
Now, one of the things, of course, with this race, 400 miles, the wide grooves, especially if we see that 5 wide salute, a lot of time to work your way from the back to the front. And I think big thing is everyone is going to see a big, exciting race because you're going to have those big names, as you see in the back, trying to work their way to the front. You know you're going to have 2 stage breaks, so you have opportunities to put yourself in a strategy to get as much to the front, capitalize on the stage breaks, pick up positions on pit road, then continue working your way towards the front. Now, last year, 9 different drivers led a lap. Tyler Reddick, he led the most laps, 90, before a blown tire ruined his day. Tyler Reddick is coming off a disappointing Daytona 500 after being in an early crash. Last year, Kurt Busch, in the car he was in now, finished 8th. Bubba Wallace, 19th in this race. Neither 2311 drivers led a lap at Auto Club last year. Now you go to RCR. Kyle Busch is now in Reddick's old ride. He has won here, but led no laps and finished 14th last year. Kobe, starting with you, which driver do you believe is more likely to leave with the win? Tyler Reddick or Kyle Busch?
Well, Joe, I think I have to go with Kyle Busch here because, moving over to his new team at RCR, I think Kyle Busch and that team, they've been very well 2023 season. I think, and as we were saying last week, Kyle Busch is a man on a mission. He's highly motivated. And that you made a mistake to let me go, and I'm gonna go out there and take Richard Childress race and back to the glory days. So I expect that we're going to see Kyle Busch in victory lane at some point this season at number 8 Chevrolet. Will it be this weekend? I'm not sure, but I certainly think at the moment that Kyle Busch is in a better position to elevate Richard Childress Racing to be in a more competitive organization than Tyler Reddick is right now with 2311. With that said, I still expect Tyler Reddick and 2311 to have some solid runs this season, but at the moment it seems like Kyle Busch is a step or two ahead of him.
Definitely. And I think there's a few reasons why I would also say Kyle Busch over Tyler Reddick. One of them has to deal with the manufacturers as well. I mean, considering the last time Kyle Busch ran here in a Chevrolet back in 2007 when he was driving the number 5 for Hendrick Motorsports, if you look at his finishes he finished 24th and 23rd in his first 2 races here, but then he won, and then all top 10s, 10th, 8th, 9th, 3rd. He's good. Kyle Busch is a very good driver, and he has the most experience here out of most of the field besides Kevin Harvick. And I think Kyle Busch will propel that. And I mean, realistically, if we're talking out of the dual race that Kyle Busch was in, out of the Clash and even the Daytona 500, I think Kyle Busch is one of the few that has had a realistic chance to win each of these races that we have seen, even though 2 of them were exhibition races. And then also, again, talking about Chevrolet as a manufacturer, Chevys didn't do too hot here last year. I believe Kurt Busch, who finished 8th, was the only Toyotas finished 8th out of the top, I think, 12. There was one Toyota in the top 12 here. So and then Kurt Busch had the actual highest average finish since 2020 when the sport came back to Auto Club, even though Kurt Busch is now retired. That's why I'm leaning towards Kyle Busch here as well. I mean, Tyler Reddick is a great driver as well. I think he might be up there with the Toyotas, but I think Kyle Busch is going to get it done. And I wanted to point out a fun fact I forgot to mention about Toyota. Christopher Bell will be starting on the pole, and shout out to Trey Ryan on Twitter for this one. Christopher Bell's raced here twice, one with the Levine family racing in the 95, one with the number 20 car. He has finished in last both of his races due to engine failures. Finished 38th in 2020, finished 36th in 2022. That's why it doesn't give me too much hope for the Toyotas, because it doesn't seem like when they come here they do very well unless it's Kyle Busch, and now Kyle Busch is in a Chevrolet, so I expect that to continue. But if you're picking your fantasy teams, I feel like Reddick and Kyle Busch are 2 great options for you today.
Great options for you. We haven't talked much about Ford today. Last year, Austin Cindric, he took the pole after winning the Daytona 500 last year. Logano, Harvick, Briscoe, and Blaney, they all led a lap, at least last year in the race. The last time a Ford won here, though, 2015 with Brad Keselowski. Ford has 11 wins on Auto Club, of course, second to Chevrolet. Toyota has fewer wins, but of course, they started in the Cup Series much later compared to Ford and Chevy being there since the first race in 97. Matthew, which Ford drivers will you be watching with the best shot at taking the win?
I mean, there's definitely a few, right? One of them, unfortunately, I don't think will be Brad Keselowski. I feel like this is mimicking what we saw last year, where great Clash, or he didn't even make the Clash, sorry, great Daytona 500 duel, and then the team kind of just went downhill. That's why I'm a little worried about RFK Racing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did very well here and won. But I think the guys who finished in the top 8 last season with Logano, Eric Almirola, and Kevin Harvick, I think Logano and Harvick are probably those 2 most experienced here, can get it done. But the thing is, another fun fact with Joey Logano is he has not won a race since, or with Shell, when he's gone to Penske with Shell and Pennzoil on his car. That's the only time he's won the races. Auto Club, he usually doesn't have either of those as his primary sponsor, so I don't know if I want to pick him. So I might lean towards the Kevin Harvick if I had to pick one of those 3 drivers I previously mentioned. Kevin Harvick wants to go out with a bang, and I think he could definitely – he's one of the best drivers at every track you possibly see. Even with his age getting up there, he's just an incredible talent. And then if you have to pick a Ford driver, I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Harvick got it done too. I don't know if he'd be my pick a winner, but he is definitely one of the most talented drivers in the field at this specific track. So, yeah, to answer your question, I would probably say Harvick is my 2 to watch for Ford. Logano's always up there, as we see from the past 5 years. He's always near the front. But then Eric Almirola, I feel like, is going to be a driver to shock us as well. I think Eric Almirola can sneak his way into a top 5, top 10 finish today. But if I pick one, it goes Harvick, Logano, then Almirola are going to be my top 3 to watch today for Ford.
And remember, Matthew, this is Kevin Harvick's home track. He's from Bakersfield, California. So I think Kevin Harvick wants to also go out with a bang at Auto Club Speedway, and it'll be very special for the driver from Bakersfield, California, to go out there and get one final win at his home track in his last season before he hangs up the helmet at the end of the year. But the one driver that I'm really going to be watching with Joey Logano, I think out of any Ford driver, that he has the most momentum headed into this weekend, because he obviously won the duel on the and then ended up getting that runner-up finish in the Daytona 500. Joey Logano, I think he's going to be fired up to try to defend his championship, and maybe we'll see him get a victory at Auto Club Speedway. But I'm gonna give you guys a hint. Joey Logano is not my pick. He's not gonna be my pick of winner coming up. I'm going with the Toyota driver, and it may surprise you who I'm picking.
Of course, pick a winner coming up very shortly. Auto Club Speedway on Fox tomorrow. Definitely, it's going to be a very exciting race. The Pala Casino 400, last time at the 2 Mile Oval. And overall, I think it's going to be really good. I encourage everyone to subscribe to us here in the Grit Network, like and comment. And now is a good time to comment with who you think is going to win. Pick a winner, and we welcome back Ed. Thank you so much for staying with us for submitting your pick a winner. I'll throw it over to Kobe.
Yeah, Joe, and luckily it looks like we're going to be able to get the Cup race in tomorrow. If you've been following all the action at Auto Club Speedway today, you know, as it's been bucketing down, you know, for many hours now over there. You know, they've canceled all on track. No Xfinity race still this evening. Very unlikely that it's going to happen, because it's just scheduled to, you know, continuing to rain all day long, and it's supposed to clear up before the Cup race tomorrow. So it looks like we're going to be able to get that show in, and look at the still up there. You know, Matthew, Joe, and myself have a lot of work to do. Currently got a total of 14 people on the board. So everyone out there, if you're watching us right now, please share with us who you think is going to win the final NASCAR Cup Series race on the 2 Mile Auto Club Speedway. And Matthew, starting with you, who do you think is going to win the Pala Casino 400?
Ooh, this is going to be a fun one. This is a driver I don't think I have picked, but I'm a diecast collector. I love NASCAR, so I think I'm going to start showing if I have the driver. So I'm going to go with this guy right here, the driver of the number 99. I think Daniel Suarez is going to get it done. I think he's a very underrated driver, and with this new car after last year's performance, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a Taco Pinata break tomorrow afternoon.
I haven't put much thought into this, actually, just because I was so anticipating what will happen in qualifying practice. I think I'm going to go with the Chevrolet. I might go with Ross Chastain. I know last year he crashed in practice, so he never really had the opportunity to show what he could do on the track. Now, everybody, no practice laps, no qualifying. Ross Chastain is my pick, or pick a winner.
And as I just said, I'm going to go with a Toyota driver. I'm going to go with a driver from Joe Gibbs Racing. I think Denny Hamlin's going to get the job done in Fontana.
What I know about NASCAR can probably be written on the end of a very small pin, but I read about it now and again, and I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. I'll probably go for Chase Elliott, I think is what I went for when I wrote it down, so I'll stick with that. Is it because of the animosity from Carl Larson at the bottom? Is it because the animosity between him and Carl Larson from last season? Is it because Chase Elliott's won before? I don't know. I thought I did a little think. I saw Chase Elliott's name and thought, oh, let's go for that one. I've already got one pick wrong today because I went for Nick Cassidy to win in Cape Town, and in the end, DaCosta won. So I guess that's what happens when you bet against Porsche. No Porsches to bet on this time, so have to improvise. But I think Chase Elliott, that's the final pick.
Yeah, Chase Elliott's definitely a great pick. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today as we hit the 1 hour mark. So Sunday tomorrow, we're going to have Grit Live wrap-up 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race on Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Grit Live Encore recapping the Xfinity race and more. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed, following our big weekend of Rolex 24 coverage at the end of January, helping us reach our new goal of 500 subscribers before the Daytona 500. Now we're going to try to reach a new ambitious goal of 1,000 subscribers before the Indy 500 on May 28, which seems like an eternity away, but it's really not. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get all our notifications. Follow us on social media and visit gridranking.com. Take 5 minutes to invest in Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Mark, Deschelle, and Robin for investing in Grid Network each month. Thank you to David who continue to keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we'll begin sending members of our team to the track more often for live reports and to create more content that you all like to see. Link in the video description. And if you want to do a one-time donation, click the link to buy me a coffee, get your name on our board, and invest as much as you want. You can even buy a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they'll thank you on the air like we did last week. For Edward Hunter from Formerly Zone, Joshua Birch, Matthew Bro, and Joe Samniego, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching and enjoy the race.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.